University's W5.
I'm concerned that some of them are going to lose their lives.
Students, lured by promises of a quality education, left hungry, broke, and desperate.
There are no houses here, there are no jobs here.
I wouldn't let anybody live in that.
We have spent our money to come here and we wanted to have a decent life at least.
And
it's very physical, it's very creative. That's the best part about it.
creating a world of sound for cinema.
Watching Andy is like watching a magician.
We can add a lot of emotions to actors' performance with sound effects.
When you come up with the perfect sound, it's magical.
Here is Avery Haynes.
Welcome to W5. Foreign students are a financial windfall for Canadian colleges and universities. They pay twice as much as Canadians, but many say they were sold a fake dream by recruiters. In an investigation that spans from Canada to India, Molly Thomas reveals the stark contrast between the promise and the reality.
This is what students see when they search for Cape Breton University online. A promotional video shows breathtaking views not far from the world-famous Cabot Trail. What many may not know, this small university is becoming one of Canada's fastest-growing institutions.
CBU has been a great institution, not just for my education, but for my overall holistic development.
It's a dramatic turnaround when in 2016, Cape Breton University, also known as CBU, was in dire financial straits. $1 million over budget, declining enrollment, and staff facing layoffs. So what saved CBU?
Hi, my name is Loisa Sangbedo and I'm from Nigeria.
CBU offered me a lot of opportunities.
International students who generally pay double what Canadians do. And it's not just CBU. With government funding at an all-time low, students from abroad are the new cash cows of Canadian universities.
So this is our archive.
CBU staff proudly took us around their main campus. More than 70% of the students here come from outside of Canada, the majority from India. That's the highest percentage of international students in Atlantic Canada, and one of the highest for a public university in the country.
You got to know this neighborhood.
Yes, it's very friendly.
It may be friendly, but for Siddharth Balachander, it was also very crowded.
8 people used to live in the house, and then
8 people said?
8 people, yes. 8 people. And
why are 8 people living in one duplex? I mean, that's not that big.
It's not that big, but we don't have many houses where it can accommodate students, it can accommodate international people. So we got to adjust to, what is available.
And now, to make things worse, no one lives here.
That's my room. So
that was your room?
That's my room.
That's right above where...
Right above where it got fired.
The fire left Siddharth and 6 roommates homeless. A 7th housemate died in that fire.
Come on in.
Months later, Siddharth is still looking for a place. He's temporarily living with a friend.
We are living like refugees, actually. We have spent our money to come here and we wanted to have a decent life at least.
Before the aggressive push for international students, Cape Breton already had a severe affordable housing shortage and was one of the poorest economic regions in the country. Yet the university continued to admit thousands of newcomers to the school.
As we've reported this week, an international student studying at Cape Breton University died in a fire over the weekend.
Siddharth started speaking out to local media.
We don't have houses anymore in Sydney. CBU should stop inviting more people.
Siddharth first heard about Cape Breton University from a recruiter in India. The country is a hot spot for students dreaming of a different life. W5 hired a producer in the northern state of Punjab to find out what students were being promised. Recruiters can rake in thousands of dollars from Canadian universities for each enrollment. The agent our team talked to gave a very positive review of Cape Breton and said nothing about the shortage of safe, affordable housing near CBU.
How easy to find place around Cape Breton University? It's a beautiful city. So Cape Breton is a public university, and last couple of years it has become a very popular destination for international students.
Back in Canada, CBU reminded us that their student residence still has rooms available. But many international students tell W5 they can't afford to live here after paying such high tuition and fees. An international student can pay almost $20,000 per academic year. That's compared to a Canadian student who would pay under $10,000. What makes it harder? There are no kitchen facilities in the dorms, so students who live here have to pay for a meal plan whether they want it or not.
$3,000 you need to pay for the meal plan alone. You need to pay, it says in the website.
No choice.
No choice. If you go to your website and CBU, right, it says it's mandatory that you need to pay, get the meal plan.
Students say those high on-campus prices force them to find rooms off-campus. And look at where some are living. This ceiling is falling apart. There's stained and dirty appliances, rusted bathrooms and sinks, and some say rodents are a regular find. In 2021, CBU started to warn students in their acceptance letters that housing was limited and must be arranged prior to arrival in Canada. Another area students say makes going to school here overwhelming: transportation.
As you can see, the bus is pretty packed here. Students tell us at the beginning of the semester they actually missed classes because they would show up to the bus stop, long lines, there's no seats left, and they'd have to wait for another half hour. So we asked CBU, what planning went into all of this?
Cape Breton University told us they improved transportation by purchasing 2 city buses and shuttles to increase service to the school. But this bus was still so overcrowded, it had to turn away students while we were on board. We wanted more answers, so we filed a Freedom of Information request for enrollment plans dating back years. CBU refused to release them, saying, for one, it could damage the university's financial or economic interests, and only gave us their plan for the future. Which shows that CBU could handle 7,000 students by 2027. But get this, the university has already surpassed that 4 years ahead of schedule. When we were there, CBU had 7,300 students on campus. But there's nowhere to put them all. That's why international students like Siddharth take their classes here, at a movie theater 9 kilometers away from the main campus.
First day I was sitting in Cineplex, I was wondering, why am I sitting in Cineplex? Like, come on, why am I sitting in a movie theater?
W5 secretly shot footage of a Cineplex classroom filled with international students on a 2-year diploma program. They pay thousands of dollars each semester to go to school here.
Who is studying at the movie theater?
The Indian community is studying in the movie theater.
There's no Canadian students in there?
I haven't seen any Canadian students at all.
Does that feel weird to you, Sid?
I don't know. It feels very bad, like, why do you have to do that? And they started seeing students like cash cows.
Cash cows?
Yes.
That's how you feel?
In this local paper, CBU says the university is not segregating anyone, claiming it was overwhelmed with international students when COVID restrictions were lifted and simply needed more space to hold classes. But it isn't only students who feel cheated.
It's a place that understands union activity and fighting for your rights.
Teachers at CBU recently went on strike. One frustration was how the university was handling newcomers.
Some days I feel sick to my stomach on the drive there. Some days I want to quit.
We're calling this professor Chris. We agreed to protect their identity because they still teach at the university.
What are your biggest concerns as a teacher?
Many of my concerns are about the students' welfare. I'm concerned that they don't have appropriate accommodations. I'm concerned that some of them are going to lose their lives traveling back and forth from Halifax.
Halifax is 4.5 hours away from CBU. Chris says in their class alone, dozens of students commute weekly to the university, many driving on Canadian winter roads for the first time.
So in your opinion, is the university expanding too fast?
Yes, and the university is being irresponsible. They know that they are bringing in too many students, more than the area can absorb in terms of employment, in terms of housing. They know that they have created problems for the local community.
Does enrollment need to stop today to adjust, help the people that are here right now?
Enrollment needed to stop years ago.
Coming up.
When I opened up the door, there was a pile of rat feces this big.
A housing shortage leads to horrible conditions.
It's become their nightmare. We welcome them to coldness and poverty and homelessness.
When W5 continues.
Steel may be Cape Breton's past, but spices are its future. Sydney, Nova Scotia has transformed to accommodate thousands of international students, mostly from India. These newcomers have also become the financial salvation for a once struggling university. And Cape Breton University, or CBU, is not alone. Right across the country, post-secondary schools are cashing in on students from abroad, who usually pay double what Canadians do. In fact, across Canada, they bring in over $21 billion to the economy each year. If you want to know the talk around town, stop by Brenda Matheson's house. She's a straight shooter who's carved out a simple life for herself.
You are a lifelong Cape Bretoner.
I am a lifelong Cape Bretoner. I love where I live.
But this proud Cape Bretoner is ashamed of what's happening to foreign students in her community.
We welcome them to coldness and poverty and homelessness and foodlessness and transportationless, and then we ship them off and send them down to a theater.
Brenda thought her parenting days were over until a 27-year-old international student knocked on her door with a broken elbow in the middle of winter.
He stood there, all broken and busted and homeless in front of me in the middle of January, and all I could think about as a mother is if that was one of my kids halfway around the world in that state, I would hope there would be somebody there to take him in. So yes, I took him in.
Brenda, this was supposed to be temporary.
It certainly was.
And so he went out and found some kind of a place.
It was terrible. The landlord that owned the building is a hoarder and a garbage collector. When I opened up the door, there was a pile of rat feces this big sitting by the door.
Would you ever let one of your own children live in a place like that?
I wouldn't let anybody live in that.
So Brenda brought him back home. A year later, he's still living with her, rent-free.
So how long before the families arrive?
They'll be here in 3 weeks.
Across the street, Jackie Mercer has 2 female students who are about to bring their husbands and children over from India with nowhere to put them. Besides affordable housing, international students like Vrinda Kador tell us part-time jobs are essential to survive with such high tuition.
I read a lot about the Cape Breton community, that it has an aging population and it is in need of home health care workers.
You were sold on the fact that you can come to this community and get jobs?
We definitely go in with the ambitions to get work while working as a student as well.
So where do students like Vrinda get the idea that they'll be able to find a job in Cape Breton? We hired a producer in India to talk to a lead recruiting agency and ask them, is it easy to find a part-time job?
Yes, Sydney has emerged as a destination for international call centers. So बहुत सारियां जिहड़ियां American jobs ने वो outsource ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ.
But restaurants and retailers tell W5 they're overwhelmed with hundreds of resumes a week. And CBU knows this. In their acceptance letters, they actually warn students that part-time employment opportunities are very limited. But as more students showed up each semester with limited housing, jobs, and buses, Vrinda started to panic.
So during the fall, suddenly all the hallways are full. You can definitely see that there is an overpopulation. And I used to make jokes like, oh, back to India.
Were students complaining? I mean, whether you're international or Canadian, were people like, what is going on here?
So we were a little more angry. We were like, they've called us here, there are no houses here, there are no jobs here.
Months later, Vrinda aired her frustrations on Facebook.
And this is a plea from my end to stop offering enrollment letters because the mental health of international students are completely gone down the drains.
Her post struck a chord in the community.
And future students, mind you, if you're listening to this video, trust me, right now this place is not equipped for you to come in.
What did you think of the response?
We felt like at least the community is listening. Because you really feel small as a newcomer in a new country.
So how do international students make ends meet? Some come here to the food bank on campus, but they often run out of supplies. Others rely on this local soup kitchen every single day.
Yeah.
Marguerite McDonald has been a cook here for 19 years and says she's never had this many mouths to feed.
Average maybe 125 a day to sometimes as high as 250 a day.
250 a day?
250 a day.
And the majority are students?
Yes.
Were you guys prepared for this many students to be coming through your doors?
No, no, not in the least. We were, to say the most, overwhelmed.
So why do students stay at CBU? Many tell us they're banking on one promise, permanent residency or PR.
But end of the day, एक फाइनल ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਐਸਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ PR ਨਾ ਮਿਲੇ. So I have never seen anybody flying back from Canada कि I was not able to get settled.
What the recruiter doesn't say is that there are more than 600,000 people waiting for permanent residency in Canada.
I'm very frustrated.
Remember Chris, the CBU professor's identity we're protecting? They claim the university is cashing in on the dream for permanent residency by enrolling some students that are not even qualified. What percentage of your students would fail if they were at another Canadian university?
75% of them would have failed.
75%. So they're really not where they need to be for a Canadian university.
I want to put this in context. Some of the students I have taught have been lawyers, engineers, computer scientists. So they're very bright, but they've never learned English.
In the dark recess of the mind.
The week we were in town, CBU was promoting, yes, another expansion to the university. W5 had requested an interview with the president of Cape Breton University, David Dingwall. He was a former federal cabinet minister under Jean Chrétien, in charge of health, Atlantic opportunities, and even housing.
This investment is nothing short of transformational.
Dingwall declined our request for an interview, so we showed up at the event.
President Dingwall, Molly Thomas, CTV's W5, expansion's always exciting, but I think about, the people that are here and if there's enough care for them right now. Who's responsible for them? And are you actually ready to keep growing here?
We're absolutely ready to keep going forward. First of all, we inform students that if you want to come to the campus of CBU, you better check and firm up your housing options. A good number of them haven't done that, and we'll tell you something.
Housing options?
You're going to allow me to complete my sentence?
Sure,
well, thank you very much. They have an obligation. We have an obligation to find those spaces and build those spaces. I just announced yesterday another 240 spaces on the campus, which will provide students with an option as it relates to their housing.
In 2019, CBU also purchased land to build more affordable units, but no ground has been broken yet. They say other housing projects are in the works. But they have capped enrollment in certain programs going forward, though they still have more students than they ever planned for today.
In your strategic enrollment plan, you are 4 years ahead of target. And so, yet there are problems with jobs for students, there are problems with transportation, there's
Hold it right there. Hold it right there.
Is that not fair?
No, hold it right there. CBU does not promise students jobs. We are not a job factory.
Dingwall's office points out that the school did help some students with part-time employment. 730 were hired in 2022. Despite the improvements, a confidential document was leaked to W5, where CBU admits the doubling of total enrollment was the result of largely unplanned growth and should have been thought about many years ago. We asked the president about that.
Can you publicly say here that something went wrong along the way?
I'll tell you quite candidly, yes, we have to do things better. That's the name of the game. You're not perfect in this.
For sure,
and we'll try to do things better in the future, yes.
David Dingwall still has faith in the future. But students like Vrinda Kador have already given up on Canada. After 8 months of constant struggles in Cape Breton, she went back home to India. She's now $30,000 in debt.
How long will it take you to pay that back, Vrinda?
I don't know, Molly. I just came in. I'm trying to take this month easy, then figure it out. But I feel like a complete fail, and I really do. And I just remind myself that I'm not a fail. I'm more than this. And I will rebuild again.
Ontario's colleges have agreed to minimum standards to protect international students from false claims of jobs, housing, and immigration. Those rules take effect in the summer of 2023.